Starred alongside some of the real greats of the large and the small screen, but recently she's become a firm fixture in the longest-running comedy series on British television.
Mother! Be quiet. Mother! Be quiet. But Mother! Look, I've heard enough. I don't want to hear any more criticism about the way I drive. I don't criticise you for being a passenger. Every time I come out, you complain about the way I drive.
You need new glasses.
That'll do.
I just want you to put yourself in my hands.
It's not easy when you're holding a bicycle.
I just want you to leave the planning to me. I'll always find us places where we can be together, unnoticed.
Please welcome one of Thora's mates from home Firth, the tart on the bike, Jean Fergusson. You know this lady, Thora. Lovely to see you.
Oh, hello, darling. Hello, Thora.
You've met, I mean, you joined last summer, well, within a year of one another, I think 12 years or so ago.
How long have you been in it now?
This will be my 12th year.
Well, it's about 12.
Oh, well, it must be the same time.
Like the same year.
Yeah.
But you've got a particularly unique celebration cropping up this year on the programme.
25th.
25th year, which makes it the longest-running comedy on television in the world. You're playing somebody completely different to Marina. Your one-woman show, which I've spoken to you about before, which is now about to hit the big time, the story of Hilda Baker, called She Knows You Know. You're about to open at West Yorkshire Playhouse.
Yes, it's all
very
very
exciting.
It's wonderful.
When did you light on this She Knows You Know woman?
Well, it was actually 5 years ago. I was doing pantomime, and somebody said, when I was dressed as Marina, doing Fairy Marina in this pantomime, they said, "Oh, do you know, you don't half remind me of Hilda Baker." And I said, "Pardon? I'm sorry, you know, the eyelashes, the hair and all of this and the miniskirt." And he said, "No, there's something about your mannerisms." And it's actually come out since that if I look at Marina sometimes now, I think, did I pinch this from Hilda? Because, you know, when I do that, I mean, those of you who remember Hilda might just know she used to do things like that. Not quite as exaggerated as that when I do it as Marina. But maybe unconsciously, because when I was 10, I used to do impersonations of Hilda. You didn't know that, did you?
No.
No?
That's the only thing you haven't told me at the dinner table.
I told her everything else.
So, give us some of those phrases that became Hilda's. I mean,
well, there's been a lot of new ones come to light recently in some newspaper articles I found, like things like, ooh, he was that rich, he looked like he was from the effluent society. And another wonderful one, that's Ricky Doodless, which I love. But the ones, it's really funny that what's so surprising is that people nowadays don't even realise. Youngsters say things like, "Oh, your big girl's blouse." Mm. Yeah? And even "not on your Nelly," and "have you been?" I had a letter from somebody recently saying when they were 6, their parents used to say, whenever they got on the plane at Manchester Airport, "Now then, have you been?" Yes, he's been.
What do you mean used to? Still do.
Yes.
My mother still says it to me. I've seen this play, and it is staggering. It's terribly emotional in parts, very compelling. I mean, you can hear a pin drop, because as well as doing quite a lot of the act and getting the laughs, you tell this rather tragic story of this woman who eventually became rather ill.
Yes, I mean, she was a comedic genius. She was the forerunner of all our stand-up comedians today. She was doing it in the 30s and 40s on the vaudeville stage. Desperately wanted to be taken seriously as an actress, but wasn't. The public wanted her to do stand-up. But then, unfortunately, she contracted Alzheimer's disease. Mm-hmm. And very early on, it's difficult to tell that what you've got is Alzheimer's. I mean, we can all say, "Oh, you know, where did I put that piece of paper or that pen?" But but in some instances, of course, it can get worse and worse and worse, and that is then Alzheimer's, and that's what Hilda had. And her worst thing, of course, as you know, having seen the show, was that she would stand on stage in front of a theatre full of people, and she admits this in some writings I found, and you can't remember anything, and you don't know what you're doing, and that, as we know, is every artist's nightmare.
Did you ever meet her, Thora? Hilda Baker?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I can tell you, I met her either 3 or 4 times. And do forgive me, darling, because I like you, but she didn't like me. There's nothing comic about it. She did not like me. The Mayor of Morecambe, I'll tell you briefly, he gave a sherry party, because I did seasons at Blackpool, you know, we've all done this twice nightly at Blackpool. And there were a lot of people at Morecambe, pros, and Hilda was one of them. Now, I'd never met her, and he gave this sherry party, and they were in the half hoop, and I knew most of them, because as you're older, you've met them, or their dads or somebody. So it was, you know, Arthur, don't you? Hello, Arthur, how are you? And when I got to her, she turned her back on me, and I thought it was, and this is not cruel to her, because God knows she was a good artist. I thought she was looking for something at the back of her. Right, I left that, but the Mayor said to me after, what a strange thing to do, you know. Now, the next time I saw her was in the Dorchester Hotel when I got, excuse me mentioning it, the Pie Award for being the best comedian of the year on television. Now, she was at the luncheon, and, you know, she was only about 4 feet 11, am I right?
Yeah, 4 foot 10 and a half.
I know she was, I'm only 5 feet, she wasn't as tall as me. And there's always a map there which table you're on, you know. And the pie gentleman met me, and she was over there in the Dorchester, and she came across to me and she said, I suppose you're on table 1. I can't mimic her like you can. I suppose you're on table 1, and I was with these men. I said, I should think so. She said, well, I'm on 5, and I'm not stopping unless they move me. Which she did stop, unless they move me, you know. And although, I suppose in the way we can say she was rude to me before, you forget all that when anybody's as clever as she was.
And you remember the talent.
Yes, and they did move her on to 2 or 3 or something.
But not 1.
But I think she'd be jealous, you see.
She would.
An envy or something, because she desperately, I know we have had this conversation,
yes,
funnily enough, that I think she desperately so wanted to be like you, because acting and all of that.
Yes, but something funny is this. When I was at Drury Lane, and I've never told this to the public before, I may have told you, darling, once over dinner. When I was at Drury Lane, some of the dancing boys were next to me in the dressing room. We used to come in for a little drink, you know, and they were lovely lads and all. In fact, I'd been with a lot of them at the Palladium, so I knew them very well. And one came in one night, Malcolm, and he said to me, you're going to kill yourself when I tell you this. Well, he didn't. He said, you're going to kill yourself when I tell you this. And I said, what is it? He said, well, Michael and I went to Blackpool yesterday, and he's a friend of Hilda's, and we were going along the car, in the car on the promenade a bit quickly. And the policeman on a motorbike flagged them down and got off, got to the window, looked in and said, oh, it's you, Thora. Well, I don't go so quick. Now, this is fine, only as they set off to go, she turned around, she said to the lads, well, if that's an insult, I know one, thinking I'm Thora Heard.
No wonder she didn't talk to you.
She got her own back. No, well.
Jean Fergusson at West Yorkshire Playhouse. When are you opening at West Yorkshire Playhouse, Jean?
The 4th of April till the 4th of May.
And the play is entitled...
She knows, you know.
Jean Fergusson.
Very good. Very good.
Well, now for something completely different.